Hello everyone, I'm Colin Kinnett. Welcome back to a few more workshop hacks. And I want to remind you, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I invite you to do that. Click that little notification bell and let's go over to the table saw. On some of my more recent videos, I've been talking about zero clearance throat plates. And one of the reasons you would want to have zero clearance throat plates is when you're cutting really thin material and you don't want it to slide between the blade and the insert. And sometimes you don't want to go to all the trouble of making a zero clearance insert because you only need to do it once. Here's a couple of quick ways of making zero clearance inserts that work really well. So what you need to do is start off with a very thin piece of plywood, and I'm just going to set mine arbitrarily right about there, sort of at the end of my insert there. And what I'm going to do, in my case, I can do this. Not everybody can do this, so we're going to look at another way of doing this as well. You can take your fence and put it right on top of the, with a fence like this, you can put it right on top and you can actually lock that down. And now when I lift my blade up, I can bring that blade right up inside that insert. And now I can use that to do my cutting. Now, not every table saw works that way. The other way that you can do it is this, is you take your strip of wood and what you do is you cut a thin strip of it, and I'm just going to use something like this and just quickly do a couple of quick cuts on here. In this version, we do the same thing, but now we've got it clamped at the end so it's nice and firm. We're going to raise the table saw blade up into the material, but now that the wood that I just cut, I'm going to use as a slider, and you're going to see how we'll be able to cut wood with that. So there's another quick way of doing really quick and easy zero clearance inserts, and now you've actually made sort of a mini sliding table saw as well. Works very, very well. Here's a method I use quite often. It's called a storyboard, and I like to make it when I'm using boxes because sometimes a cut is not right, or I have to remake it, or I just want to duplicate a cut or duplicate a box. And what I need to do when I'm setting up my table saw, I'll set up my first cuts and make my first cuts, but I'll also make a storyboard. Now you always start with your longest first of all when you're making the storyboard, and all you do is run the blade in and make a mark. Now that happens to be 4 inches, and I'm just going to mark it, and I'm going to mark where it's 4 inches from. But look, I can keep on making a number of these. I use 2 inches a lot, so that's going to be another one that I'll make, and run that one in. And I'm going to make another one that's going to be 2.5 inches. And now every time I want to reset something up, I don't have to remeasure it every time. I've got a storyboard, and I could go around and make all sorts of marks on this, but look at how easy that is. I just run that into there, set my blade up to that, and that's set, and that's the same as what I've already been using. Very often when I'm using a stop at the table saw, rather than using just a piece of wood, because I find once in a while you get sawdust and chips in there, I like to lift it off, and in this case I use a flat topped screw and use that as a stop, and it gives me a much more accurate stop. Now here's a way to make repetitive slim cuts. And what you do is you get a piece of wood that's long enough that you can clamp to the end of your table saw, and clamp it down on there. And what you do is make yourself a little thin piece. You only need one of these. That's going to be the width of the wood that you want to cut plus the width of your blade. Then you can put that in there just like a little wedge, hold that down like that, and now you can make a cut and make a thin strip cut. To make the second cut, all you need to do is move your wood over to the next spot, then move your fence, butt that back up, and now you're going to make an identical cut. And you can keep on doing that and make as many cuts as you want, and it'll all be perfect. Here's a great way to refurbish throat plates. Maybe you've got one that's a little bit too wide and you don't want to take the time, or maybe you don't have the material to make another one. Here's a quick way to fix it. You turn it over, because this is the way it sits in the table saw, and take some masking tape and cover up that hole and make sure it's nice and flat and well sealed. Flip that over, and now all you need to do is mix some 2-part epoxy, and I like to mix it on just an old board, a piece of scrap board, and then put some in that slot, and it will bottom out on the tape that's in there. And you don't need to fill it. It doesn't even need to be half fill. You just need to put sort of a skim coat in there, maybe a 1/4 of an inch or so. It won't take that much. Let that sit for 5 minutes, but don't throw this out, because you can use this, the glue that's left on here, to find out how hard your epoxy is. So check it after 5 minutes and see how hard it is. And if it's ready to go, all you need to do, flip it over, peel your tape off, and now you've got a brand new insert that you can make as wide as you want. Well, that concludes my video for today. I hope you got some suggestions and maybe some ideas for things that you might be able to do in your workshop to make life a little bit easier for you. I'm Colin Canet for WoodWorkWeb. Thanks for watching.